Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to do an interview with a very, very special set of guests here. We have author Sally Brandle, and she has written an incredible book titled Sapphire Promise. And
Yes.
thank you. And joining with us is Iris and her daughter Joanna. And these three ladies are so very, very important for this story. And they have so much to contribute in this interview that you're about to enjoy. And I truly, truly hope that you do enjoy it. This is marvelous information. And we are so thrilled as the Indo Project to be welcoming these three ladies with us this evening. So we're going to get started first talking about how Iris and Sally first met. So Iris was going to share with us how she and Sally first met each other.
You talk.
No, it's
Sally.
okay. Go ahead, Iris. Well, Iris and I met at the art museum, and I'll let Iris talk about meeting her and how special it was.
Yeah, Sally and I connected immediately, and she came to my house and I came to her house, and we found a lot of things that we both liked, and her family and I got very close. And I'm very happy that I still have her as my friend.
Oh, that is just beautiful. Thank you so, so much for sharing that, Iris. So it was just a connection that you two immediately developed. You were drawn to each other. That's
Yeah, we were both volunteers at the Seattle Art Museum, and so we had art in common, but we also both love horses. We both love gardening. We like to cook. Iris is a consummate entertainer. So her parties were a lot different than my parties. She does 4-course lunches and I do potlucks. So, but it always worked.
Oh, that is just wonderful. I love the two of you coming together. So now we'll go ahead and move on to what inspired this book. How did this book come to be? Sapphire Promise.
You tell.
Okay, so Iris will share little tiny bits of her earlier life, like maybe about the horse, because she literally rode her horse with her pet monkey, Newt Newt, in front of her. And so when you could extract little bits and pieces of how and where and why that happened, I started taking notes, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago. And I only started really writing seriously about 10 years ago, but the more I thought of Iris's story, the more I thought, we need to capture kind of a biography. So for her 96th birthday, I tried to do a pretty inclusive biography of her life. And a man in Holland helped me research her family history. So he went way back generations. But then the nuances of falling in love and her struggles and the things that kept coming out, we decided it would be just a great memoir to write. So I normally write romantic suspense, but her book really had a lot of romantic suspense in it. So we just worked together, and I talked to Iris a lot, and there's very little in the book that's not true. I'm saying it's probably 90% true. I had to make up a few things for flow, but I would call Iris and say, can I add this in? And 5 or 6 times I would make something up and ask if I could add it in, and it had really happened. So that was really fun too. We'd kind of laugh about it. One instance is something with the toes of her ballet shoes, and I made up something that happened with them. And oh yeah, mommy said that would be not a good idea, but it worked out fine. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just kind of imagined this. So it was just, Iris and I have always had a very special connection. And I don't have sisters, so she's like my big sister. We have a really interesting relationship.
Oh, that is just beautiful. Oh, I love that. How incredible. In order to get, the story, the chapters to flow with each other, because, it's a significant period of time that you're condensing into a book format. So making it flow, that's incredible that you'd call her and find out, yes, something like that did happen. And oh, here it is. I love hearing about the ballet slippers. I did ballet myself, so it's just a very, very precious piece to me. I love that you, Iris, are a ballerina yourself. How lovely. I was wondering, Sally, could you share about the issue you encountered with the self-publishing, or why you were driven to self-publishing? This part's so interesting.
Well, I had, I don't know, 12 or 13 beta readers read the book, and several of them said to me, this is a breakout novel. You really need to go big. I'm published with a smaller publisher, and they said, you really need to shop this to bigger publishers. And, through conferences and whatnot, I had names of people. So I did submit to a couple bigger publishers, and the one that really was interested didn't want to start the story with Iris's really idyllic childhood. They wanted the story to start with the internment camp. And I know Iris for being very positive. You don't get that woe is me, here's what I went through. You never get that with Iris. I never have. And so I called her and I said, we have a chance, we could probably sell it to this publisher. And, they're a little bit bigger than mine, but they want to start it at the internment camp. And she wasn't comfortable with that either, because her life was so formed by her family and, that colonial life, that it was really important that come through in the story. And Iris, I'm sure you can say that your upbringing was so huge.
Yeah. I was fortunate that my grandmother was nobility, and she taught us a lot of things that normal people wouldn't even think of. And I was very thankful for that. And when I met my husband, he was very pleased that I had a lovely upbringing. That's all I can say.
It was an idyllic childhood, it really was.
Huh?
Idyllic childhood.
Well, and the family mantra was noblesse oblige, which is, if you are of nobility, you have an obligation. So the parts of the story about how the Indonesian people had been treated respectfully. So when Iris's family needed help, the Indonesian people were willing to do that. And to me, that says a lot about, how her family treated people. And then on Iris's mom's side, a great-great-grandfather had married a relative of one of the Sukarnese sultans, a family member. And so because she had that Indonesian heritage, she and her mom were able to get out of the worst internment camp, basically in the Pacific area for women and children that the Japanese ran. And if she would not have had that Indonesian background and descent, the last man that was the commander of that camp was horrible. And who knows what would have happened. He was awful. So because of her Indonesian heritage from several generations back, they were able to leave the camp.
That is incredible. That is incredible. It's such a testament to how your family was known and how your family interacted with other people. Wow, so much kindness there. That's just incredible. During that time, the uprising and all of the turmoil, it left people with very, very negative feelings. And to see that there was still such a bridge of appreciation and love between the indigenous people and then the Indo people, at least some in these wonderful families, that's just so positive, and that's an aspect and an angle of the Indo experience that it needs more light, more attention to be brought to it, which is what you are doing right now, and Sally through this marvelous book. Oh, that is so great.
The events when Iris and her mom went back to the house and their servants were there, that's all true. And the Indonesian veterinarian, what he did, all of those things really happened. So I think just by my upbringing, I wouldn't have been very comfortable writing the story if I wouldn't have known how Iris is, how she treats people, and where she got that from. And not all the colonials were like that. So, to me, that's also a really important story, because there are these attitudes about certain people and how they treat one another. And the Japanese general that Iris had to give the shot to every day, he treated her very fairly. And, he was a good guy. And you just don't often see the Japanese
In a good light.
yeah, in the high up in the military being decent people. And we think we know who he was, but we're really hoping somebody can verify it. We think it's Moichero Yamamoto, Moichero. But so many of those records were destroyed, but I've got it really close to fitting that piece in, but I just can't exactly verify it. So I'm maybe hoping someone that is in your audience might know.
Might be able to verify.
Yeah, I mean, Iris described the house and when he was there and so many things, but she just can't quite remember. She's pretty sure that's his name, but not absolutely positive. So that would be a real blessing.
Wow. Oh, so this is really, really exciting to our Indo community here. If you pick up a copy of Sapphire Promise, there's an Easter egg in there. You're going to see a name. And if anybody recognizes that name and knows of the location, please, please, please contact us, because we would all love to know.
Well, and
Interesting.
I left his last name, Yamamoto, and that's a very common Japanese name. I didn't put Moichiro in, and I would reload it to do that, because Iris wanted him to be known as being the decent person that he was, but we just can't quite verify. So yeah, thank you.
That is amazing. And that is so noble and so wonderful that you are bringing light to this man who was so good. He was a good human being. There were many, many, many good human beings. As I'm hearing all of this, I'm thinking of this story that was recounted a handful of years ago. The Indo Project did a presentation at, I believe it was UC Irvine for that one. It was one of our regular tip talks. And oh, everyone pardon me, but the name, I'm going to butcher it. I'm so sorry, but it was the Buitenkampers. And that was the film that we were showing. And there was an interview in there with this one, I think it was one camp survivor. And they were speaking about how this one Japanese soldier was talking talking to someone who was crying because I think they had either been reunited. Yeah, they had been. He allowed them to reunite. It was a parent and child, I believe. I might be getting it wrong, but here's the part that sticks out in my mind. The officer said, "Don't cry. Don't cry. You're going to make me cry too. I miss my son or children." And that stuck with me. It's been years now since I last saw that. The first time I saw it was during our screening, and that was a very profound thing for me to see because I've just been studying through books and through speaking with other people. And so Iris, to hear about the humanity, and Sally to hear about the humanity, it's very, very nice to know that even in, the middle of hell in many circumstances, there are still good people around. So that's very beautiful. And thank you so much for sharing all of that. Please continue if there's anything more, and then we'll go on to the next question.
The one thing, and maybe Iris will talk about this, I'm not sure, but so she became a full registered nurse in Seattle. She finally was really able to do that when she came over to America. And in one of her interviews, they asked you how you would feel about treating the Japanese, right?
Yeah.
And do you remember what you said?
No, I forgot.
Well, something to the effect of, why would I care? Those aren't the people that hurt me or were bad people. And that's the Iris that I've always seen. She never looked back. She looks forward.
Yes. I am more positive than negative. I think that is why I survive everything.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my gosh, Iris, that is such a beautiful message of positivity. Most definitely. No need to forget, no need to erase your memory, but moving forward in life, there's no need to carry all of that pain. Keep looking forward and keep holding that positivity and that compassion. That's truly a marvelous message.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, and Iris, I want to share with you, we've been running something called the Worldwide Indo Challenge for a handful of years. And it was a survey that I got started, many, many years ago. And we at the Indo Project have regularly been revamping it and collecting data from the Indo community to share with the Indo community. And we have a lot of nurses. That is a very, very popular thing. So I just want you to know that there are many Indo women and men who have followed in your footsteps in nursing. It's just a profession that I suppose speaks a lot to our community, being of service to others. I myself am in mental health, and it's very, very gratifying.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Just before yesterday, I have a friend that is a nurse, and she read the book, and she's a pretty stoic nurse. She's 80, and she actually got tears in her eyes from a nurse's perspective and said, "This is the best book I've ever read." And she said, "I can't imagine Iris going through all the things she went through." She said she was doing so much more than being a nurse. And you had to, right? You just, yeah. You had to do what you had to do.
We had to do what we had to do, yeah.
So by the time Iris came to the States, she had helped in many, many surgeries, right?
Yeah.
So decades of exposure in 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
That is incredible. Wow. Iris, you've seen so much. You have seen so much. That's incredible. Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. Well, so I guess at this point we'll move on to your thoughts on, at this point, the Indo experience and the Indo people. Anything that you would like to share?
Do you want to talk a little about Oucha?
Huh?
Do you want to talk a little about Oucha?
Ouch.
Oucha? Your,
About Ouchie?
your nanny?
Your nanny.
Oh yeah. When I grew up, the maid that helped my mother with my birth, her name was Ouche. That means oldie.
Oldie.
Oh.
And
Oldie. Ouch.
yeah, and
Oldie.
she was always with me. And yeah, she thought that she was my grandmother. Yeah,
That's beautiful. Oh, your Oma.
she just helped raise me as a child.
She was her nanny,
Nanny.
right?
Yeah, she was a nanny.
She was a nanny, but like an Oma to you.
Well, and the sweetest thing is, in the epilogue, Iris provided a picture of Oucha, and Iris had brought her two little girls. She had two little girls before she left Holland, and they had a picnic. And I've had many people say how, the kind of the colonial way was the Indonesian people were always here and the Dutch were here and blah, blah, blah. Well, they're just all sitting on a blanket. They're just wonderful friends. And I sent that picture to a gentleman that had kind of disputed that. Iris had a beautiful relationship with Oucha, and she made a point to see her before she returned to Holland. And I just thought it was an effort, and it was really lovely. And it was an effort for the nanny to come too, because there were still hard feelings at that point.
Yeah.
So it was dangerous for her, to come and meet Iris and the girls. So it just shows all the love that was in their family.
Yeah.
And Joanna is one of those little girls on the lap.
And now I'm so lucky that my daughter allowed me to live here.
It's my pleasure,
Oh,
And
that's such a
Mama. I always wanted
blessing.
to come to sunny California. I said, okay, well, this is your chance.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, Joanna, that's wonderful. Iris, I'm so happy for you. That's great.
yeah,
Yeah, she's been here about 6 years now. It'll be 6 years in September.
yeah, I've been here 6 years.
Wow, that's marvelous.
Yeah,
Well, I want to thank you so much, Iris, for allowing this to happen, letting your story be told and shared with the world. Sally, for chronicling it and putting it to paper so that we get the privilege. We don't have to lose it to time. We get the privilege of knowing about it. What this does for us is, in a wonderful, wonderful story, it preserves pieces of Indo history for a brand new audience, for very, very young people who are just learning about the Indo experience and Indo history. And most of all, it is in the English language. And we at the Indo Project are so grateful for this. We are always on the lookout for Indo history in English, so that our rather significant youth population has an opportunity to learn about it. That's one of our little barriers. There's the language. Most do not speak Dutch at this point. So any of the references that we have in the Netherlands, they're just not easily accessible. And so by creating this wonderful piece, this wonderful novel for everyone to enjoy, they're also seeing Indo history, but through the lens of reality and love and romance and excitement and bravery. So much bravery, Iris, so much bravery. I just really want to emphasize that. When I was reading the manuscript, I could not put it down. And then I had to, because I had to study for an exam that I was working on. And I'm just like, oh, prying it out of my hands. I wanted to.
Oh, that's cute. That's so cute.
No, it's just marvelous. We are so excited. This is an awesome endeavor. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, we did put a true and false test on my website because there were a couple incidences that didn't really happen, but as I was rereading and editing, it just re-amazed me at the things Iris did when I thought back to how privileged she was and how young she was, and then all these things she really had to do to survive. It was incredible. I mean, it continues to amaze me, and Iris continues to amaze me.
97 years young.
Oh, thank you. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You are absolutely amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for allowing us to have this interview. You are absolutely lovely. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your interest in the Indo Project, and Sally and Joanna, you both too. Thank you so much for helping this to happen. We are very, very grateful.
Yeah, but it is through Sally and through my daughter that so many things have been able to be reported.
So true, so true. I'm so grateful that you both, have been so encouraging of this, and that as Iris was there, Sally had told me that Iris would be sharing her stories, and at some point it needed to become a book. So I'm just so happy that it did. Okay, well, thank you. I'm going to pause the recording, but we'll say bye to our audience, and then I'll pause the recording. And I'll say bye. Bye, everyone in our tip audience. We're so grateful you joined us, and please be sure to pick up your copy of Sapphire Promise. We will provide that information in the link, and that is it for now, or description rather, not the link. The link will be in the description. And see you soon.